I'd like to take a look at a famous poem by Dylan Thomas today, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. It's probably his most famous poem, although it's hardly typical because Thomas tended to work usually in free forms, using free verse. But this is a very strict and traditional form of poem. So let's begin by reading it through, I think. Right. Where is it here? Okay. So, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. It's known by its title. It's known by the first line. The title is the first line of the poem. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. The wise men at their end know dark is right. Because their words have forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Brave men near death who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Yeah, so a very powerful and emotional poem, and it's of course addressed to his dying father. So in the first stanza we are given the situation. The poet is addressing an unknown person at that stage and telling him or her to struggle and fight against death. And it continues in that way for the rest of the poem and gives examples of people who struggle against death. They don't just accept it because they're old. And we learn at the end that Thomas has a personal interest in this. It's his own father, and he wants him to continue living. So he wants him to fight against death. The form of the poem is called a villanelle. It's a French form, and it's 19 lines, 5 stanzas of 3 lines each, and the final stanza of 4 lines, that's 19, and the rhyming scheme is A-B-A throughout, except in the last line of 4 you have A-B-A-A. So basically there are only 2 rhymes in the whole poem. Gay, sight, night, way, bay, light, bright, sight. So it's always the same two rhymes, and that's challenging. That's difficult. The poet has to keep it interesting while only using words that rhyme with these 2 sounds. So they say that the Romantic languages like French and Italian have more rhymes than English. So it was challenging for Thomas, but I think he did a good job, really. I think a villanelle in English, it doesn't have to be an iambic pentameter, but this one is, and it's kind of natural because iambic pentameter is the most natural kind of meter in English, and it's the one that was used extensively by Shakespeare. They say it's the one that approaches to the nature of ordinary speech. And of course, the iambic means that every second syllable is stressed, and the penta means 10, so there are 10 syllables in each line. That's the structure of the poem. It's a villanelle, so I'm not sure if I can think of another successful villanelle in English at all. So he was doing something quite ambitious here, and there is no doubt that this is the most popular villanelle in the English language. Most people, including myself, would be hard pushed to actually name another one. So it has few competitors. It's a very simple poem. The vocabulary is simple. Let's go back to the beginning. It starts off with these two lines: do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should bend and brave at close of day. Oh, 3 lines: rage, rage against the dying of the light. So these 2 lines, do not go gentle into that good night, and rage, rage against the dying of the light, are going to be repeated in all the verses. And they keep coming back like a refrain until the last verse, when the final 4 lines are made. 2 of them are made up of these 2 lines. Do not go gentle into that good night, rage, rage against the dying of the light. So he states his point of view that everyone should fight old age. Old people should fight against death. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. In fact, it's not just fight, really, it's struggle with everything that you have. Not accept it at all. There are metaphors here, but they're so obvious that they're not really worth pointing out. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. I think everybody automatically understands that close of day is death here. And the dying of the light is another metaphor for death. The wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words have forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. So now he starts to give examples of people who didn't or don't go easily into the night, into death. So starts with wise men at their end. They know that dark is right. As often happens with Dylan Thomas, it's a little bit ambiguous and hard to say precisely what he means here. So, because their words have forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. So old men know that dark is right, because their words have forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. So even though they haven't been able to accomplish the things they wanted to do, they still struggle against death. So maybe you might think that they would be glad to go because they didn't accomplish what they had to say, what they had to communicate, but they don't go easily, because their words have forked no lightning. There are other interpretations you could put on that as well, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, because Dylan Thomas is really full of this kind of thing where he leaves things open. Personally, I see it as a kind of weakness, because it's difficult. I'm not sure he does it deliberately. I think that sometimes it's not like some poets who use ambiguity in a very conscious way. I think that he just is a bit lazy sometimes. I think that's probably an example. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay, rage, rage against the dying of the light. Grave men, so a very obvious pun here about dying, death, your grave men near death, who see with blinding sight, see what they see, the nature of their life probably, and what it's been worth, and whether it's worth continuing to fight to stay alive. But their blindness could turn into something bright, like meteors, and rage against dying of the light. That's what they should do. So he's turning the traditional idea about death on its head, that when people get old, it's kind of the natural thing for them to just pass away quietly. But no, he's saying should fight and fight against death. So we begin to ask ourselves, why is he so determined to keep emphasizing this? It's natural for people to die, so why should old people continuously fight against death if their life is bringing them pain and misery? Isn't it time to just let go? But as the poem continues, of course, we learn the reason. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. So the whole time he's been addressing his own father, and this is the reason why he's giving these examples of old people who could and should continue to fight. They're examples for his father. It's kind of an emotional truth. That's the way the poet feels at this stage. He wants his father to continue living so he can continue their relationship. If he dies, it's the end of that. So he just wants to emphasize that he feels that his father must continue to live, and so he gives all kinds of examples of people who are old and fight against death, and he wants his father to take heed of that and to keep fighting. Actually, underneath it all is that sadness where he realizes that he's kind of spitting in the wind here. He knows that in his heart of hearts, I think, that old people must die, and that his father too probably must pass away at this stage. But emotionally he can't accept it, and he just gives lots of probably false examples of old people who could and should fight against death, and asks his father to follow them. Although, as I say, in his heart of hearts, he knows that probably can't happen. It's a good poem. I don't think it's as good as The Force That Through the Green Fields Drives the Flower, although it has more personal emotion. It's very personal, of course, and that's why it's so popular. Of course, it's good as well. That's another reason why it's popular. But it's definitely one of his best poems, but I don't believe it's his best. It may be his most popular. I would say The Force That Through the Green Fields is his best poem. More innovative and interesting. This is a plea from the heart, of course, and anybody who has lost somebody will understand its power and feel emotionally Dylan Thomas's loss. So don't think there is a lot more to say about it. It's a good poem, but not a great one in my opinion, and not as good as some of Dylan Thomas's other poems. However, it's technically very demanding poem, or very demanding form, which he handles very well, and kudos to Dylan Thomas for writing the most famous villanelle in the English language.